Good morning, kindergarten. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, 12 months in a year. We are in the month of April, 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 and we're looking to fill in the missing number here. What comes after? Go back to what we know. What comes next? We need a number 10 today. A 1 and a 0 for our 10. Days of the week. 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 There's Sunday and there's Monday. There's Tuesday and there's Wednesday. There's Thursday and there's Friday. And then there's Saturday. Days of the week. Days of the week. Days of the week, days of the week, days of the week. We have today. I'm gonna put it right underneath. Today, looking back at what has already happened, back to what's already happened, that's yesterday. And then looking ahead to what comes next, that one's tomorrow. Yesterday was Thursday, yesterday was Thursday, today is Friday, today is Friday, tomorrow will be Saturday, tomorrow will be Saturday. The end of the week, the end of the week. We have today, Friday, it's Good Friday, the day we talk about and celebrate the fact that Jesus died for our sins. And it's also Emma's birthday, so happy birthday, Emma. I hope you have a wonderful day. Let's take a peek at our calendar or our notebook. Got Friday, April 10th. If you would like to make a number rainbow to go with today's number 10, that would be really great. And look at the word fact families for the number 10. Would be a great activity. Otherwise, we can take a look at ordinal numbers. Remember, when I'm counting ordinally, that's when I start with first, second, third, fourth, fifth. These are my fancy Easter eggs. I want to be able to say which Easter egg is fourth. First, second, third, fourth. The fourth Easter egg is yellow. The second Easter egg is green. Maybe you could do some writing about those. An activity that I sent had ice cream cones instead of Easter eggs, but I just wanted to talk about counting ordinally. We want to be able to count all the way to 10 ordinally, or the 10th place. So those are my eggs. Our our word family today is eat. I've got two E's that sit next to each other, so they no longer make the short E sound of eh. Now these two E's that sit next to each other make eat. It's not eat like I'm going to eat a sandwich. That kind of eat is E-A. We talked about E-A, our best friend letters, and I can have E-E that sit next to each other. If when you're spelling you find a word that follows this spelling pattern instead of this one, that's okay. I just want you to practice writing words that have the same sound. We'll work on spellings later on. Over on this side, we have a bunch of question words today for our sight words. Some of these will be very unfamiliar, but I think these are going to be important words as we go back and retell stories and as we write about what we've read or create our own stories. So here are 6 little words you'll need. Here are 6 little words you'll need if you really want to read. If you really want to read. Who, what, why, when, how, where. Know these words and you'll read too. Know these words and you'll read too. I'm not going to go down to my portion of writing today because I have a book I want to share and I want to have enough time in my video to get all the way through it. This book is called The Tale of Three Trees, and I think it would be one that I would read in the classroom during this week. It's one of my favorite books, and I'm excited to share it with you. Oh, my light. I'm going to see if that helps the glare a little bit. Okay. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. "I want to hold treasure," he said. "I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world." The second little tree looked out at a small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be a strong sailing ship," he said. "I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I'll be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in the busy town. "I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all," she said. "I want to grow so tall that when people stop and look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." Years passed. The rains came and the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "Oh, this tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It's perfect for me." With the swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship fit for kings." The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered. With the swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him into a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to the shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail the ocean or even a river. He might be taken to a little lake. Every day, he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third little tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in the lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted was to stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many nights and days passed. The three trees nearly forgot about their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby into a feed box. I wish I could make a beautiful cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly, the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon, a thundering and crashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from a forgotten wood pile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think about God. That's better than being the tallest tree in the world.